In January 1970, the field base at Tay Ninh depended on a road. Every day, trucks had to bring in the things that kept the base working: fuel-powered vehicles, generators, pumps, and support equipment. Ammunition supplied the fighting units. General cargo and building materials served many other needs. None of it arrived by chance. Every load had to be prepared, checked, placed in order, and moved as part of a convoy. The road connected Tay Ninh with the larger American supply system in South Vietnam. The idea was simple. Depots held the supplies. Trucks carried them to the bases that needed them. But making that system work was difficult. A field base could continue operating only while the link remained open. The fighting might take place far from the depot, yet the supply line was already part of it. The main American logistics center for this region was Long Binh. It held large stores and supported forces across the Third Corps area. From there, transportation units moved cargo over long roads to field bases such as Tay Ninh. Long Binh was not the end of the supply chain. It was the place where many separate streams of cargo were collected, sorted, and sent forward. An official United States Army history describes the Tay Ninh run as a daily mission. The convoy began moving at 6 in the morning. It carried different kinds of cargo, but the loads were divided into clear groups. One group carried general supplies and building materials. Another carried petroleum, oils, and lubricants. A third carried ammunition. This order mattered. Each load created a different risk. Each needed a different place to stop and unload. Fuel could burn. Ammunition could explode. General cargo could be damaged, lost, or delivered to the wrong unit. Keeping the groups separate made the convoy easier to control when it entered the base. It also helped the receiving crews prepare for each type of delivery. A convoy was more than a line of trucks. It was a moving system. Drivers needed a route, a schedule, fuel, maintenance, and clear instructions. Heavy vehicles needed room to turn, stop, and keep their distance. Escorts watched the road and helped control the column. Men at the destination had to be ready before the first truck arrived. One delay could affect every vehicle behind it. A breakdown might block a narrow road. A wrong turn could divide the column. Dust could hide the truck ahead. Drivers had to hold their place without following too closely. They also had to watch civilian traffic. Military vehicles shared the road with local people: bicycles, carts, buses, and other trucks. There was no separate highway built only for the war. The supply system moved through the same towns and farmland where ordinary life continued. That made speed only one part of the job. A convoy also had to remain together, pass through crowded places, and reach the destination without creating another problem on the road. The route to Tay Ninh was not safe simply because it carried supplies. Army records describe mines and enemy fire on roads leading to and from the area. The region near Trang Bang was one known danger point. Security could come from escort vehicles and from tactical units responsible for the ground along the route. But protection could never remove every risk. Fuel tankers were large and easy to recognize. Ammunition trucks carried loads that could turn one hit into a major disaster. Drivers still had to keep moving, hold their position, and follow the vehicle ahead. Most journeys ended without a major attack. That did not make them harmless. A normal day on the road demanded discipline before courage was ever tested. Roads and bridges shaped the whole operation. A bridge became a narrow point where a long column had little room to move. Traffic in a built-up area could slow every truck. The Army tried to reduce these delays. After the Pu Con Bridge was built, convoys on the Tay Ninh route could avoid part of a crowded urban area. The new crossing saved time, but it did not make the journey simple. Every truck still depended on the vehicle in front of it. The convoy had to move at a pace that heavy and fully loaded vehicles could maintain. Reliable transport came from repeating the same basic actions and checking them every time. The surviving Army film carries two dates: The National Archives dates the record to January 28, 1970. A production board recorded in the film reads January 25th and includes the words Final Convoy. The two dates do not have to contradict each other. One may mark the filming, while the other may belong to the completed production record. The words Final Convoy require caution. They do not prove that this was the last American supply convoy to Tay Ninh. No document found in the research supports that claim. The words may mean the final convoy recorded for this camera assignment. The safest conclusion is simple. The film preserves one complete working cycle inside a much larger logistics system. The Army history gives a clearer picture of the road itself. From the Saigon area, the column passed through Hoc Mon and continued west past the American base at Cu Chi. It went through Trang Bang, crossed Soi Khao Creek, and reached Dau Ha. There the drivers turned northwest onto the road to Tay Ninh. The route passed Ap Nhi before the final stretch to the base. The crossing at Soi Khao had another name among the truckers, Soy Seed Bridge. That name came from the number of ambushes around it. A large convoy could contain 81 vehicles and move at no more than 20 miles per hour. Refrigerated trucks went near the front. General cargo followed. Fuel and ammunition stayed farther back. If a dangerous load was hit, the trucks already ahead had a better chance to keep moving. This was not theory written far from the road. It came from hard experience. One of the hardest lessons came near Ap Nhi on August 25, 1968. A reinforced North Vietnamese battalion attacked the daily convoy with rockets, machine guns, and automatic weapons. 31 vehicles escaped the front of the kill zone. 50 remained trapped after burning vehicles blocked the road. Low cloud initially kept air support away. The attack began at about 11:45 in the morning. The convoy had only 8 military police gun jeeps for close security. Enemy troops had prepared positions beside the road, near a rubber plantation. Some were dressed as South Vietnamese soldiers and opened fire when the ammunition and fuel section entered the ambush area. A burning fuel truck blocked the column. Later, an ammunition truck at the rear was hit, closing the other end. The attackers then fired on the escort jeeps and radio vehicles. It was a planned attempt to hold the trucks inside a kill zone about a mile long. The lead vehicles followed their orders and kept moving. The drivers left behind had to fight where their trucks had stopped. Sergeant William W. Seay was driving with the 62nd Transportation Company. He took cover beside a vehicle loaded with high explosive ammunition and fought at close range. Twice, enemy grenades landed near the ammunition. Twice, Seay left cover, picked them up, and threw them back. He was wounded, but continued fighting and directing the men near him. A sniper later killed him. Seay received the Medal of Honor after his death. 7 drivers were killed in the ambush, 10 were wounded, and 2 were captured. The relief force also suffered heavy losses. The attack showed what could happen when a long convoy was stopped on a narrow road. It also showed why ordinary cargo trucks needed protection that could move with the column. The truckers did not wait for a perfect answer. They began building one themselves. If you enjoy these restored films, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps our channel. Thank you for your support. The first gun trucks were cargo trucks rebuilt in unit workshops. The men placed protection around the bed of a 2.5-ton or 5-ton truck and mounted machine guns inside. Early crews used sandbags. Later trucks used steel plate or armored boxes. Some early trucks carried 4 .50-caliber machine guns. They had great firepower, but they needed a large crew and could not always hit targets below the road. A steel gun box with weapons on simple mounts worked better. The crew could cover both sides of the convoy and open fire fast. Gun trucks did not always lead the column. The enemy liked to hit the first vehicles and block the road. So convoy leaders moved the gun trucks to different places each day. The attackers could never be sure where the hardest return fire would come from. On the hard routes, There could be one gun truck for every 10 cargo trucks. The crews spread them through the column, with one often near the rear. Armed jeeps or armored cars could go first. The mechanics and recovery truck followed behind. The crews made these trucks their own. Many were painted black instead of army green. They carried names like The Boss, King Cobra, Poison Ivy, and Blood, Sweat, and Tires. When a convoy was hit, gun truck crews moved into the kill zone and fired on the attackers. Only one original Vietnam gun truck returned to the United States intact. Its name was Eve of Destruction. It now stands in the U.S. Army Transportation Museum. Years later, engineers working on convoy protection for Iraq studied the old truck and talked with Vietnam veterans. A machine built by truckers in one war helped protect drivers in another. Gun trucks did not make the road safe. They made an ambush harder. When shooting began, their crews drove toward it, while the cargo trucks tried to escape. The gun trucks gave the drivers a chance to keep moving or hold out until help arrived. By 1970, many roads were quieter than they had been in 1967 and 1968. American forces were starting to leave Vietnam, but the men who remained still needed fuel, food, ammunition, tires, spare parts, and building material every day. This film comes from that later period. The National Archives gives the date as January 28, 1970. A board in the original film says January 25th and final convoy. That does not prove this was the last supply run to Tay Ninh. It may only mean the last convoy covered by the camera crew. The film does not give us the exact truck battalion. The 48th Transportation Truck Group ran major road missions across this part of Vietnam, and its unit histories explain the Tay Ninh route. But we cannot put a unit name on these trucks without proof. Reaching Tay Ninh did not finish the job. Tankers went to the fuel area. Ammunition trailers were kept away from normal cargo. Food, parts, and building supplies went to their own storage points. The trucks had to enter in order so the base could unload them without blocking the next vehicles. Ammunition needed special care. The film does not tell us its exact type or amount, so we will not guess. We do know that ammunition made up one main section of the daily Tay Ninh convoy. Guns at the front could keep firing only while the trucks kept bringing more. Even unloading could become a problem. The driver was meant to leave a full trailer, hook up an empty one, and head back. But some units did not unload on time. Some had no forklift. Others moved the trailers away without permission. Then things became stranger. Some units painted over the trailer numbers and added their own. In simple terms, they kept the trailers. Truck companies ran short even though their missing equipment was still sitting somewhere on another base. So the Army sent teams out every day to hunt for missing trailers. New reports tracked who had each one. It was not a heroic job, but it mattered. A tractor without a trailer could not carry the next load. After unloading, the empty trucks and trailers had to get back to Long Binh. Before the next run, the vehicles needed fuel, inspection, and repair. A fault found in the motor pool could be fixed before it stopped a truck on the road. Dispatchers matched working tractors with new trailers and loads. Escorts received the route. Drivers went to a briefing. The original film is silent, so we do not know the words spoken there. The briefing prepared the column for the next run. The drivers were only one part of the run. Depot crews sorted and loaded the cargo. Mechanics kept the trucks running. Military police and combat units helped guard the road. Engineers worked on bridges and road sections. Men at Tay Ninh unloaded the trailers. Dispatchers kept the movement on schedule. That is why this quiet film matters. It does not need a firefight to tell a war story. Before aircraft could fly, vehicles could move, or men could stay in the field. Somebody had to bring in the fuel, ammunition, parts, and food. The Long Binh road carried more than cargo. It carried lessons from every earlier run. Fuel and ammunition stayed toward the rear for a reason. Escorts watched the road for a reason. Gun trucks existed because ordinary drivers had once been forced to fight with too little protection. Then it started again. The trucks lined up at Long Binh. The convoy rolled through the city and villages, crossed the bridges, turned northwest at Dau Ha, and headed for Tay Ninh. Full trailers went out. Empty ones came back. That was the rhythm behind a field base in Vietnam. Load, move, guard, unload, repair, and return. No single convoy could supply Tay Ninh for long. The base depended on the next one, and the one after that, reaching the end of the road. If you enjoy these restored films, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps our channel. Thank you for your support.